Hi guys, I guess we can start today's webinar. So yeah, thank you for attending today's webinar. We've only invited partners today, so you guys will be the first to know our latest launches later on. Because apart from the recap that I'll be doing for the first half of this year, I'll also be introducing some new products that will be launching really soon. So for today's session, again, as before, if you have any questions, you can let us know. We have a lot of panelists today, so you can just type your questions on chat or use the Q&A function on Zoom. So today I'll be discussing about EnGenius Cloud updates. I'll be highlighting those items that is going to be useful for you guys, especially for new deployments. I'll be discussing about the hardware updates that we have recently for the first half of this year, as well as some of our upcoming products. And I'll be giving a preview as well on what's to come later on. So there's been a lot of updates on the cloud recently. So again, I'll be highlighting those that are really important and would be very useful to you all. First is earlier this year, we launched real-time diagnostic tools. We've made this available on access points so that you can troubleshoot sites without having to physically go there. Usually when you need to do troubleshooting, you would need to plug a laptop on the network or be on the physical network to connect wirelessly to do basic checks such as the ping test, speed test, and all that. So all our access points from the ECW 120 to the ECW 230S are equipped with real-time diagnostic tools. So recently, we've also added these tools on the switches now. So if you are using ECS switches and EnGenius Cloud switches, you would be able to run these tools as well. We've also added an ability to do packet capture directly from the switch. So again, this allows you to further do remote troubleshooting without having to set up port mirroring just to do packet capture without having to set up a server. You can capture it easily from the cloud. Let me show you the user interface real quick to let you know how it's done. Just a minute. So hopefully we're on the same page right now. On EnGenius Cloud, when you go to our switches, there is a new diagnostic tools option. You should see the usual, like what we have on our APs. You have your CPU status, ping status, but on the switch, of course, you have additional functions such as a port checker. Here you can see the packets in real time, how much throughput is going on. If there are errors, or let's say you have loops on the network, it would show here as well. It would be highlighted. You are able to do cable tests as well. So I have my active port selected. This allows you to quickly check if there's a problem on the port without having to physically check the network or having to run a cable tester. So immediately, if you have, let's say, a pair of pins that are having issues on one of your cables, it would be highlighted right away. If, let's say, you have a short or if the pin is open, it would be displayed as well. For the switch side, we also have additional functions built in as part of the diagnostics, such as the ARP table and the client list as well. So you'll be able to check which VLAN a specific MAC address is using from which port. Of course, the most important function that you can use on the switch side is the packet capture feature. So without having to set up your PC, plug it on a switch, set up port mirroring just to capture specific items on the switch. Let's say you really want to do in-depth troubleshooting. Straight away, you can do that from the switch. Basically, you just have to set your duration, set your filter so that you can narrow down the packets. Once you run this, then it will prompt you for a download, which you can view later on in Wireshark. It's going to be in PCAP format. So the diagnostic functions of EnGenius Cloud, again, makes it a lot easier for you. If you are an SI, if you are an MSP, no need to run around between different end users just to do basic troubleshooting. So most of what you need will be displayed right here on the system. Like, for example, a speed test from the access point side. If you're using our security models, you'd also be able to do real-time RF analytics. The next addition that we added on the cloud is DCS Enhancement or dynamic channel selection. I think not everyone is aware of this function. because this was added I think about a month ago, but I didn't see any announcement about it. So maybe not all of you know that this is part of our system now. So on the system, we have auto channel that I'm sure everyone is aware of. So what differs auto channel from dynamic channel selection is that DCS does it automatically for you on certain intervals. So we've also enhanced this in a few weeks back so that you can properly set the interval when you want to do the scan. You can also do it on schedule. So this makes it easier for the client to set their conditions, their connections, without having to disrupt the connections. Because usually for an access point, when it's switched to a different channel, there would be a break on the connection. It's a few milliseconds from the client side, but depending on the client device, they may not be able to connect right away. So if you want to set up auto channeling on certain intervals, let's say 8 a.m. before office starts or 12 p.m. during lunch period, so you can trigger that on the system so that your AP would do the scanning in time frequencies that are not being utilized within the access point. So DCS is helpful if, let's say, for example, you have a number of APs. Maybe channel planning was not done because you were rushing the installment. So without having to like set up your channel planning, DCS would solve their problem for you. With DCS, by the way, you can also exclude these DFS channels. So if you are deploying near airports, seaports, naval bases, or military bases, it would exclude the DFS channels as well. Recently, we also added a nice function, which is called smart casting. Now, smart casting is available on all our models. So again, ECW 120 wall plate APs, as well as our new models, ECW 230S. What smart casting does is it simplifies how you stream to a TV. Let's say, imagine a hotel scenario. If you want to set up casting, let's say allow streaming to the TV inside a room, first you would need to think of isolation because you don't want to guest streaming to neighboring rooms. Second is you want to set up how your SSID works. For other brands, the way they do it is that maybe they set up multiple SSIDs, one dedicated to each room. So they label their SSID names room 1, room 2, room 3, etc. Problem here is that for the guest, it's not seamless. Like when you go to the lobby, you have a different SSID. When you go to the function room, you have another SSID. When you go back to your room, it's another SSID. So you may have to log in multiple times. Other brands may have a single SSID, but the way they isolate it is that you're going to have to set up VLANs per room. So one room linked to a switch, set up VLAN there, and so on and so forth. Now, the way smart casting works for EnGenius is that basically you would have a single SSID all throughout your deployment. If you want to stream or cast, you can still enable isolation. But once you start to scan or once you start to stream, you would only stream to your TV inside your room. So you wouldn't see, or the guests wouldn't see the neighbor's TV to be able to stream there randomly. So how we do it is, let me jump back to the user interface. So how smart casting is set up is pretty simple. First of all, you'd have to set up one of your SSIDs. Wait, let me jump to. Basically, when you go to your SSID profile, now you would see an option for SmartCast. So wireless means it's a normal SSID where clients would connect. SmartCast is for your casting devices, let's say an Android TV, an Apple TV device, or a Chromecast stick that clients would stream to. So maybe in the hotel, or let's say it's an office environment with multiple meeting rooms, and then they would have dedicated streaming TVs there and or streaming monitors in the room where they want to cast. So instead of fiddling, checking which TV do I have to stream to from my list, through this option, you would only see one TV to stream to. Basically, the way it works is that you need to register your TVs here through the MAC address. So let's say all your Android TVs, all your Apple TVs, and then from there, it's going to generate a QR code for you. Now, this QR code, I think you guys are not seeing it. Just a minute. So basically, it's a QR code generated from the system, which the guest can scan. Maybe you can post this on the TV if you're using an IPTV in the room, or you can print it out and display it in the room for clients to cast. So by default, everyone would have isolation. They would still have L2 isolation. So the guest would not be able to see your servers or any restricted devices in the network. So they would have internet access. When they scan this QR code, then they will be able to cast to their TV. Yeah, so again, smart casting makes it a lot easier for the MSP or system integrator to set up a Wi-Fi network with casting services as well as isolation at the same time, without having to set up VLANs per room, without having to worry about multiple registrations of different SSID profiles. The TVs, your casting streaming devices can also connect to the same access point. Let's say you have 4 rooms connecting to the same access point, your clients or guests would still be able to have isolation within their casting environment as well. On the enterprise side, we added some features as well. One of them we call SSID with Ethernet over GRE, or generic routing encapsulation. What this means is that you would be able to have a single gateway for all your termination points or for all your hotspots. So for instance, here on my diagram, I have multiple hotspots. Regardless of their location, they can link back or they can communicate back to a single gateway. So this gateway will be providing DHCP server, DHCP leases to individual hotspots so that you can consolidate your connections. Imagine if, let's say, you are a big wireless ISP, or you have a client that is an ISP, and then they're deploying multiple hotspots across different locations. Usually, they would have different gateways or different methods just to link back everything in one site. Now, through SSID with Ethernet over GRE, basically, again, it unifies your gateway. You only have one virtual gateway here in this setup so that everyone can get the DHCP list. You can apply policies from here as well remotely. But it's not only used for enterprise or big scale deployment. Like nowadays, a lot of people are working from home. This can be also applied to this scenario. So, for instance, you are working from home and then you want to link back to your office network. Usually, what you need to do is set up a VPN tunnel, set up site to site VPN or IP or client to site VPN. That means you would need additional hardware. You may also need additional software if you're using client to site VPN. So the way we have it work on our side is basically you set up an SSID, enable tunneling from there, and then just point it over to the gateway, which is residing, for instance, in your office. So from there, once I connect to that SSID, I would have seamless connection in my office network. If I have files on my NAS at the office, I will be able to retrieve files back and forth. Also, if you have other colleagues, let's say that they're also working from home, you can easily do collaborations as well because they'll be all linked through the same network. Now, on the cloud interface, let me show you where to enable it. Okay, so under client IP addressing, usually we have the bridge mode, which is pass through, and then NAT mode, where your AP is acting as a DHCP server. So you have an option here for a tunnel. So this is where you set up your tunnel. Let's say it leads back to your office, or again, if you are a wireless ISP, links back to your main gateway. So all you need to do is point back there, and then the rest will be done by the system. If, for example, that particular network or client requires specific parameters, let's say a specific VLAN, let's say they want to make it more secure, they can also enable DHCP option 82 to give information on the DHCP relay. Basically, what this does is it gives information so that the gateway knows the information about the client connecting to it to make it more secure. So once they have set up all these parameters, basically, when I connect to this SSID, I'll be tunneling to this specific network. So at the same time, of course, I can still enable other SSIDs. Let's say I'm using this at home. So one SSID can be for my office network. The other SSID is for the rest of the people in my household to connect to the internet normally, as usual, using your local router. We also have enhancement in the way that we do custom radius, or when we link to an external radius server. So in the past, you are able to do failover between two radius servers. So that's server one and server two. Failover means if, for example, you're trying to do external authentication, maybe you are linking to an external database. Usually this is used for campus, office, enterprise, or corporate environments. Once your first server fails for authentication, then we will go to server number two. But nowadays, a lot of database, or even let's say third-party hotspot gateway servers, third-party hotspot gateway providers, they are using different types of authentication for their database. They may not prefer load balancing. They may prefer a faster way for authentication. So when you enable load balance here under EnGenius, under custom radius option, what it does is it does weighted round robin. So instead of, sorry about that. So instead of doing fill over, meaning checks between server one and server two, if server one is offline, what it does is it does a round robin between the three servers to allow flexibility and it to allow a faster authentication method as well. So instead of having to wait for server one and check if it's down before moving over to server two, immediately it does that on the background on the fly. A lot of cloud-based hotspot gateway server providers as well also utilize tree radius servers right now to make it more seamless, as well as to make it more resilient in terms of failures in their network. So one of your radius servers can be a local network. It can be on your local network. Another radius server can be on the cloud, and then another radius server could be sitting somewhere else on the cloud as well. So right now, this is enabled on EnGenius side under the captive portal option under radius settings, but we'll be adding this option directly on the SSID as well. So to find the option for radius balancing, basically you have to go to custom radius under captive portal. And then there you would see the three radius options. This applies to accounting servers as well. So you have three there as well. And then from there, you can enable load balancing. So by default, it uses the failover algorithm. So when you enable this, then it's going to use load balancing. So again, the same thing can be applied if you're using the accounting server. By the way, since I'm on the screen, we also added minor tweaks as well in terms of external radius authentication. So now we have an option for a COA, which is great for those managing clients using an external radius server. Basically, they can trigger a session timeout from an external source. If let's say you are deploying hotspot setups, you can also do bandwidth limitation now through the radius server. We also support radius MAC authentication. I'm seeing a bit of questions under Q&A. I'll get back to them once I finish part of my slide. Thank you. One thing I want to highlight as well is that we recently updated our white papers online, which gives you information on the functions that we release. We also have updated our security information in case you want to know more details, like in-depth details about how our cloud run, where the data center is, what type of security we have on the cloud. So you can see all that information under our white paper section. If you guys don't know where to find it, basically you can see it from our microsite or from the user manual. So let's say you are at the cloud. From the option right here, you can go to user manual. And then from there, it's going to give you three different tabs. First is for the release notes. This will give you information, by the way, on what are added on the latest release of the firmware on the cloud. So it's divided into different access points, switches, as well as the mobile app. And then the microsite, of course, will lead you to EnGenius AI, where we have information about all our products about the cloud. And then the white paper section. So on the white paper section, this is where you can get in-depth information about EnGenius Cloud, Like what I mentioned just now, in terms of security information, we've added a bunch of information here. So if you have clients who want to go on board the cloud, but they are still thinking about it, maybe they worry about how secure it is. So this can help them a lot in understanding what's going on the cloud system. We also added more information here in terms of our security APs, LDAP service, as well as AD authentication. Maybe you have clients that have AD requirements, but maybe you are not sure how to set it up fully. So we have full step-by-step instructions here as well to assist you on that. Speaking of AD, we have those options on the cloud. Those who have missed it out, let me just show you that as well. So under the security type, we support a lot of security options for EnGenius. Of course, the usual WPA2, WPA3, PSK, this is supported through all our models. Under enterprise option, we have different Redis or database options as well. So right now we have our internal Redis server. We have an external Redis server in case you are using your own. If you have Google LDAP, let's say you are using Google Workplace or G Suite, and your clients have used that as a database. So a lot of campus environments and corporate environments do this. So you can link there as well to use that as your authentication for your Wi-Fi. So not only are you using this to log into your systems on your local network, but you can apply this for your Wi-Fi login as well. If you have a third-party LDAP server, you can add that here too. And if you're using Microsoft AD as well, so that can be added directly. So without having to use a Redis server in between, you'd be able to directly integrate or authenticate through Active Directory. We'll be adding one more function towards the end of the year, which is integration with Microsoft Azure. So some of the clients are slowly shifting from on-prem to cloud right now. One thing is that they have less maintenance in terms of the server side, and it makes it a lot easier for them as well to manage it from anywhere. So Windows Azure or Microsoft Azure will be added as well as an authentication option in the near future. For hardware updates, we've launched earlier this year, I believe around January, our security APs. So just to remind everyone, the security APs come with an additional radio, which help you with these functions. So you have zero weight DFS, which allows you to bypass DFS restrictions, making you utilize the full 5 GHz spectrum without having to worry about disruptions. You have your real-time RF analyzer built in on all our security models, the 2x2 ECW220S and 4x4 ECW230S. So it's equipped with an RF analyzer built into the AP. Until now, I haven't seen this available on any other brand, which shows it live on screen. I think EnGenius is the first to do this. Basically, without having to use an external monitor, an external hardware, or an external analyzer, just to check Wi-Fi and non-Wi-Fi interference sources in your network to have a better channel planning. So you can directly do this on your access point without having to disrupt your current network. So clients who are connected to your AP will still be connected without having any issues or slowdown while you are running these functions. Of course, EnGenius AirGuard is our WIDS and WIPS system. This is very important if you're deploying for corporate campus and enterprise environment because they need full security in that setup, not just on the wired side, but on the wireless side as well. So we have a full suite of WIDS and WITS protection systems. If you want to learn more about it, we have this under our white paper as well. Of course, we also have BLE integration. Our security models are equipped with a Bluetooth beacon so that you can scan clients in the vicinity. So this is very useful for LBS. We do support LBS for wireless and Bluetooth, as well as for Bluetooth marketing push. We've also launched more switches recently. So we've added 2 more multi-gigabit switches in our portfolio, making that a total of 6 different multi-gig switches. So these switches have more ports than the initial ones that we launched, which were all 8 ports. So you have a 16-port switch here. You have a 24-port switch here. 16 of those are gigabit, and then 8 of those are multi-gig. Of course, you still have your standard SFP slots, which are 4, and then you have a high PoE budget. We also have a 48 port multi-gig switch with 16 ports of multi-G. So 32 is running gigabit, um, 16 is running multi-gig. Now, this is very useful for this type of devices. Now, a lot of devices that have been launching for the past couple of years are all equipped with multi-gig already. One is data have been increasing a lot. The demand for data have been increasing. For content creators, the amount of or the size that you need for all your photos, for all your videos, for all your raw data have been increasing steadily, which is why these vendors have released or increased the bandwidth to reduce the bottleneck to make workload a lot easier. Collaborations right now, for example, if you're using Photoshop, if you're using Adobe CC, or if you're using DaVinci Resolve, or a lot of content creators, they do collaborations right now, meaning instead of one person working on a single video file, you can have multiple people working on it at the same time. Now, to get the data from the same source, you would need more bandwidth, as in multi-gig. So this allows you to make it more easier. So most NAS right now are equipped with multi-G or 10G. There are a lot of routers right now. Some in Singapore, I believe most of the routers being sent out by ISPs are already multi-G. So it comes standard that you have a 2 GB option for your router site. APs as well. So Wi-Fi 6 APs, Wi-Fi 6 EA access points are also equipped with multi-G. Of course, you have your network switches to increase the bandwidth of your local network intranet. Workstations for your servers, pan-tilt zoom UHD cameras, 4K cameras. I think there are 6K cameras as well in the market. Digital signages and AV controllers. Lighting is here because of multi-G switches are capable of outputting PoE++. So some of our multi-gig switch can output 60 watts of power. So it can power up digital signages, lighting, AV controllers, and PTZ cameras as well that are consuming more power. So yeah, if you need more information on our multi-G switch, we have all the information on our microsite, EnGenius.ai. We have a tabulation as well on all our products. Let me show you guys that real quick so you have an idea just well. So again, to access the microsite, you can just go to the cloud, the question mark icon, click on microsite. It will bring you directly to EnGenius.ai. Here you would have your products page. You have an option for APs and switches. So under access points, you have a tabulation of all our cloud APs so that you can easily find what you're looking for. Same thing applies for the switches. So you can easily compare to check what you need for a client's network. Now, what's coming real soon? So we'll be launching the Wi-Fi 6E access point really soon. Basically, Wi-Fi 6E is an extension of Wi-Fi 6. What it does is, just a minute, my screen is hanging. Okay, yeah. So Wi-Fi 6E is, or the ECW336 is the fastest access point that we'll be launching so far from EnGenius. It's a 4x4 access point, tri-band. Tri-band meaning you have your 2.4 gigahertz radio running at 1,200 data rate, 5 gigahertz radio, as well as your 6 gig radio. Apart from that, it's also equipped with a 5G LAN because with the amount of data that you're transmitting over wireless, you're definitely going to need a bigger bandwidth to set it out. Now, some people are confused with Wi-Fi 6E. So what's the enhancement versus Wi-Fi 6? What's the big difference? The big difference is that it runs on a separate frequency. So as you can see, you have 3 radios. One radio here is running 6 gigahertz. So that can span between 5.9 up to 7.4. This would depend on the region where you're located. Some regions may restrict it up to 6.4 gigahertz, if I'm not mistaken, while some can use the 7,000 megahertz frequency as well. So why 5 gigahertz for the longest time have been very clean, but it's starting to get congested as well, especially with DFS. Your channels may be reduced. If you're using 80 megahertz channel with You can have a reduction as well on the number of channels that you can deploy. Actually, without DFS, if you're going to deploy a Wi-Fi 6 AP and then you're running at full capacity, 80 megahertz, you can only have 2 channels on the 5 gig side. So for 6 gig, it unlocks more channels for you. Not only can you use 20 megahertz, 40 megahertz, and 80 megahertz channel width. So through the ECW336, we also support 160 megahertz channel width. So a lot of PCs right now, whether it's Wi-Fi 5, Wi-Fi 6, or 6E, some of them support 160 megahertz. So this can double your throughput a lot on the wireless side. Now, where can you use Wi-Fi 6E? So nowadays, I've mentioned earlier that a lot of content have been steadily increasing. The requirement for the bandwidth, the type of media that we're receiving, it's starting to increase and very rapidly. Like most of the streaming platforms right now already are streaming in 4K. Some of them are also streaming in 8K. I think some YouTube videos right now are already running in 6K or 8K. So you can fully utilize this bandwidth without affecting the rest of your users. So multi-user workplace, meaning if you have multiple types of applications, even if you're on the same network, let's say video data, video conferencing, VoIP, at the same time you have data passing through on the same network, you shouldn't have any issues. And then cloud collaboration. So like I mentioned a while ago, so a lot of software right now have been pushing towards cloud collaboration. So again, cloud collaboration means when you're using an application or when you're editing data, a lot of different users can edit the same file at the same time. So it's like Google Sheet online. I think you all are familiar with that, wherein you can edit the same Excel file or Word file online. But with this type of collaboration, you are editing bigger data, like gigabit files in size. So let's say video files, movie files, etc. So you can do that type of collab, especially with bigger bandwidth. And of course, AR, VR, it's starting to steadily increase on the consumer side. So a lot of this application require high bandwidth as well. So of course, apart from that, you'd have your usual additions for Wi-Fi 6. You'd have your BSS coloring, which automatically segregates your channel for you. And then you'd have your target wait time, which can improve your battery life for your devices. And of course, the density of your clients. You can have more clients over this access point. I believe out of the box, it supports about 1,500 users because of the tri-band radio and 4x4 streams it support. We'd like to show you today a preview as well of our security gateway because we'll be launching this real soon. If not end of this month, early next month. I think Nancy can confirm that later on. But basically, I'd like to show you what functions we have for the security gateway. We have multiple gateways that we'll be launching. The first one of them would be the ESG 510. So ESG stands for EnGenius Security Gateway. This gateway right here would be a desktop type. It has a quad-core CPU, 4 gigabits of LDDR4 memory, 8 gigabits of storage, and full multi-gig ports. So all the ports that you have here are multi-gig. You have a USB 3.0 port for cellular connectivity, as well as a console port for administrative management. Now, you would notice that there are 2 WAN ports right here because we support load balancing for this gateway. We support failover as well. So depending on how you want to set it up, if you're using a single WAN or a dual WAN for multiple ISP connections, you can do that using the system. So the rest of the LAN ports, one of the WAN port is switching as well. Let's say you only have one WAN, so you can utilize that as a third LAN. And then you also have additional 2 multi-gig LANs as well as a PoE plus port. So this would complete EnGenius solution for the cloud. So you have a cloud-based gateway, you have your cloud-based access point and cloud switches to complete the solution. Now, what features will we have for the security gateway? So on launch, we'll be having these functions. So of course, it's going to be cloud managed to make it easy for you guys to manage it from anywhere. You can manage it from your app, from your Cloud to Go app. You can manage it from any browser. It can enjoy multi-tenancy as well if you have multiple team members managing different networks. You have load balancing or failover, depending on how you want it to be set up. So if you have a cellular dongle, maybe you're using an LTE device, 4G or 5G, if there is available already on the market, you can plug that in as your third failover in case your two WANs fail. We also support VLANs here. So you can set up your VLANs. You can set it up on the different DHCP servers from the device. We support one-to-one NATing and one-to-N NATing, or basically for, I forgot how it was called, masquerading. So you can do masquerading over NAT, so to make it more secure. Again, we support the cellular option. We support VPN as well for this device. Site to site, hub and spoke, client to site VPN are all supported. We also have a built-in firewall, as well as, of course, a hotspot gateway server system built in. So on the wired side, you can push captive portal. So in case you have access points that don't support a captive portal, maybe you have an older EAP access point from EnGenius, ECB access point, maybe older ENH models or EWS models, then you can plug that into this router to have them blast out captive portal or splash pages as well. Let me show you guys the user interface because we have it on the cloud. I'll just run through what we have on it right now. Just a minute. Let me get the browser. Okay, so like I mentioned, you'll be managing this gateway from the same cloud interface that you have right now. Here on the system, you would have information on your gateway, your two WAN ports, depending on which one you're using. From the gateway interface, it also would give you information on the ports, which WAN IP you're using, information on the physical connection, what type of speed you're running. So again, all the ports are running multi-gig for future proofing. So if your ISP supports multi-gig, you would definitely be able to utilize that using this gateway. You have latency information, throughput information. I'm just running through the different functions that I have right here. So you can also set up individual interface. If let's say you're using it as a pass-through, maybe you have an existing router or you want this to act as your gateway, you can fully do that from the system. So we support different types of connections as well: DHCP, PoE, static IP. DNS servers can be set, VLANs can be set as well. You can do throttling as well on the WAN side or on the LAN side. So the WAN 2, if in case you're using this as a failover, load balancing, or you're just using it for LAN, you can toggle this as well. So you can set up how your interfaces are working. Let's say you're using it for, you're using WAN 2 as your primary WAN or using WAN 1, load balancing or failover, you can check that from here. Cellular, you can also use that here. So once upon launch, we'll be supporting about 300 plus different dongles. We'll be releasing our compatibility list soon. But our gateway is based on OpenSense. So I'm pretty sure that it's easy to make it more compatible as new dongles are released as well. We also support DDNS. You can just select your preferred DDNS server from here. On the LAN side, of course, you are able to create multiple interface. You are able to create different DHCP servers from the system. You can set or assign it to different VLANs. You can assign a DHCP server specific to your VPN as well. If you're not familiar about some of the gateway functions, don't worry. We'll be having training specifically for the gateway as well. So let's say you are using it as a DHCP relay, you are using it as a DHCP server, you are able to fully modify that from here. So like I mentioned, the captive world can run on the LAN side as well. You can also set that per interface. So let's say you have, let's say maybe 20 different VLANs, and then you want to have 20 different captive portal instances running on individual VLANs. So you can have that set up. Yeah, so if you want to use this gateway as a VPN connector, you do that as well. So Mesh VPN is supported, hub and spoke, site to site VPN. You can link to a non-EnGenius gateway, by the way, so you don't have to use only EnGenius. So let's say you already have an existing gateway doing VPN, you can use this to link to that as well. So client VPN is also supported. So if you have a software and you want to link to your EnGenius gateway for local connection, you can do that as well. Yeah, this is just a quick preview on the gateway. So most likely these features will be available on launch. Maybe some other features will be coming in future updates for the security gateway. So what else will be launching on the next half of 2022? Of course, we'd be having more access points as well. We're going to be launching a new wall-plate AP. We'll be having new Wi-Fi 6 outdoor APs as well, 4x4. Also, our point-to-point lineup will be enhancing that soon as well. So point-to-point, point-to-multi-point will have AX connectivity as well for long-range reach. And then apart from the gateways that we'll be launching, we'll also be launching a totally new solution for EnGenius. I can't give much information right now, but basically we're gonna have 3 solutions in total for EnGenius. So we have EnGenius and Sky, we have EnGenius Cloud, and that new solution, which we'll be announcing probably, if not end of the month, early next month. So apart from that, we'll have more switches as well. And on the software side, of course, we'll continue to improve the software that we have for the cloud. So recently, most of the functions that we've been releasing lean towards the enterprise side, like to make it easier for you guys to get those projects, to close those deals. But if you need specific functions that we may not have right now, you can let us know. So we can look into adding those features and functions as well. So I'll be going over to your questions. I think there are a lot over the Q&A and the chat field. Let me just go over them. One question from Jonathan: can you limit the channels when you use DCS? So dynamic channel selection. So at the moment, you can set intervals on when DCS will run so that you can minimize disruption for wireless connectivity. You can remove your DFS channels from DCS as well. But apart from that, that's the limitation that you can do. I mean, that's the channels that you can limit. You can remove the DFS channels or include it on the system. Another question here is pertaining to DCS. So what condition is, or when does DCS kick in? Does it do a background check? Does it change the channel? Or is it based on your interval, or regardless of it, there's interference or not? So first of all, is I want to discuss about auto channel as well. So by default, all our APs come with auto channel. The way that it works is that upon boot up, or when you restart the AP, when you apply changes, when you apply settings, it's going to scan the environment before it fully goes online. So at that point in time, once it scans, it's going to check which channel is best to stick to. Once the AP have selected that, then it will stick to that channel. The advancement of DCS is that it can do this based on the intervals that you have selected or the schedule that you have set. So let's say every 8 a.m., your AP can scan the environment. If it finds a cleaner channel to jump to, then it's going to choose that. But if it checks that the current channel that it's on has the least noise, then it's just going to stick to that channel. So it's based on RSSI level, channel utilization, and transmit power as well. So the amount of commercial APs nearby, third-party APs, would be weighted as well on whether or which channel your AP will select. One question here is about SmartCast. So if you have a cable TV inside a guest room, can you still use SmartCast, or is it only available for wireless devices? So currently, SmartCasting is applicable to any IP-based wireless service which supports casting. So smart TVs, Android TVs, Chromecast devices, those standalone dongles, as well as Apple TVs. So anything that has to do with streaming, you can utilize with SmartCast. So again, what SmartCast does is it simplifies the way you set up casting. with security built in. So without having to set up multiple VLANs or different forms of isolation or different methods to isolate different SSID profiles, you can easily do it using SmartCast. Another question here is about, excuse me, Ethernet over GRE. Does the client need to use EnGenius AP to make Ethernet over GRE function work? Some other enterprise brands in the market have Ethernet over GRE as well, like Cisco and Meraki. But yeah, it's dependent on the hardware itself. So for EnGenius access points, it's supported on all our models. So long as you have an EnGenius Cloud device, and depending on your connector as well. So of course, you need to have a gateway to connect to using EOGRE. So any of our cloud models supports Ethernet over GRE. Another question here is also about EOGRE. Can it connect to a third-party system? So yeah, even if you're not connecting to EnGenius Gateway, you can connect to any third-party gateway that's using that supports EOGRE. So if you have your own DHCP server and you want to link that to your Wi-Fi system, so long as it's working on the standards service, we support that as well. We can connect there. So it doesn't have to be an EnGenius Gateway. One question here is about guest users. I think you're referring to vouchers. So EnGenius Cloud supports voucher systems as well. So you can have your own front desk portal. You can set it up from the system to generate your vouchers. Another question about Ethernet over GRE. I think you guys have a lot of requirements about it. Does Ethernet over GRE tunnel require a gateway to be set up on a central location? Yes, that's exactly the topology for EOGRE. Basically, you have a central gateway system that provides information to different access points or different hotspots. So all your hotspots, regardless of the location, can link back to that gateway on that tunnel, and then you can send out specific information. The way that it's different from VPN is that for VPN, you're a bit restricted on what you can do, what type of data you can pass through. EOGRE supports IPv6 packets. It also supports multicast packets as well. So if you're doing multicasting and you want to do this over a remote network, you can utilize EOGRE tunnel for that as well. Another question is for authentication. Is there support for Azure AD? So Azure AD will be supported really soon, hopefully in this quarter. So basically, it's going to be an addition just below the Windows AD authentication. So you would see an option there for Azure AD. Another question here is for LDAP. Authentication from EnGenius Cloud to LDAP server. Wait, let me reread that question. Okay, I think they're asking how the authentication flow is from EnGenius device to LDAP server. So when you set up LDAP, you set it up one time on the cloud, and then this settings, regardless of what you select, if it's like external radio server, AD, or LDAP, it's stored on the access point. So your access point would act like a Radius client. So when the client device connects to the AP, your AP would not go to the cloud anymore. It would directly link to your external database server. So client to AP, AP to database, in that case, if it's an LDAP server, and then LDAP for authentication going back to the client. Unless if you're using captive portal, then that would have to go through the cloud first to get the splash page. One question here is about the security gateway. Can we control it based on application? Let's say it's Zoom traffic on WAN 1 and then WAN 2 for other types of traffic. Right now, we don't have that option yet, but we plan to expand that through content filtering. So once we enhance the firewall system on the gateway, you would be able to do micromanagement as well to individual apps. Another question for the ESG 510 or cloud gateway. Can we use this to connect between branches? I think you're referring to VPN. Can we connect this between branches by cloud? Even some branches has private IP over ISP. So yeah, if you have a private IP, or I think your question is if you're using a dynamic IP from our ISP, So you can utilize the DDNS function so that you can still link to it. If you're using VPN, you can also utilize that function as well to link from site to site. Another question here is about the user session from the gateway. Is it possible to get user session report from the gateway and URL filtering? So that would come once we enhance the system to include content filtering as well, so that you can get more information on the user level. Is there any other, is there a model that's available for, oh, I think I lost the answer. The question, sorry. But yeah, Nancy have answered some of the questions. Thank you, Nancy. Another question here is about SSID authentication method going to AD. Yes, currently we already support SSID authentication to Microsoft AD. So we support that both on directly on the SSID or from captive portal. So it depends on how the user wants it set up. If they want it straight away from the SSID, they can set that as well. One another question about Ethernet over GRE. Is the client able to send print jobs from the central network to other hotspots? So yeah, so essentially when you have Ethernet over GRE, you're creating a huge tunnel with a centralized gateway. So if the rest of your hotspots are linked to the same network or the same DHCP instance that you have set on the system, you would have communication to the other hotspots as well. So yes, you can send out print jobs through that method as well. Okay, let me go through the chat. Some of the questions have been posted there. Nancy have answered most of the questions. Again, thank you, Nancy. Can we know the host name, device name instead of MAC address? So yes, by default, we provide that information. So you have your host name if it's a mobile phone. You have your PC name if it's a PC. You have your MAC address. You have your IP address. So this is provided in all our cloud devices. Okay, question about smart casting. Does it fall under basic or pro? So for smart casting, let me share my screen. All our pro features for the cloud are highlighted with a pro tag. So you can easily identify if the function falls under basic or pro just by the tag itself. So for smart casting, let me go to one of the SSIDs. Currently, it's available as a under Pro. So that means you would need a Pro license for smart casting. But don't forget, all of our APs, the hardware that you purchase from all our distributors and resellers are equipped with 1 year trial license for the Pro. So if you want to test out the Pro functions through any of your access point, it comes equipped with 1 year Pro license. There's a question here. Can we set AD authentication on 2 SSIDs? So for currently on EnGenius Cloud, you can only set up one SSID with AD authentication. That's because through that same SSID, you can have multiple domains as well on that AD server. So let's say you have an AD server and then you have multiple domains inside. So regardless of how many subtrees you have, you can still authenticate through it. Question about the ESG. Can the ESG can be configured locally without connecting to the cloud? Because of the nature of this system, because of the service, this one is going to be a cloud-based router. You can still configure basic information locally, like the IP address if you're using HTTP proxy. If you have management VLANs, you can still do that locally. But the rest of the functions to fully utilize the functions of the ESG router, it's going to have to be configured on the cloud. QR code, is it supported as well? Yes, we do support QR code for Wi-Fi. If let's say you don't want to give out your passcode for the client, you can just print out the QR code so that they can scan it and connect to your Wi-Fi system. Can I know what algorithm is used for ESG 510 load balancing? So we support two types. One is failover, meaning if WAN 1 fails, it's going to be going to WAN 2. The other one is load balancing, meaning it's going to be using rated round robin. Gateway side, can I trigger packet loss, latency, range to trigger failover? On the alpha version that I have here at the office, I'm not able to see that option yet, but I'm pretty sure that it can easily be added. Site-to-site VPN network, can it be used? Yes. Our gateway supports site-to-site VPN, mesh VPN, hub and spoke. Client-to-site can be supported as well. So I think almost all the VPN functions is supported by our gateway out of the box. So yeah, I think that's most of the questions for today. Nancy, do you have any announcements?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar. We will be sending you an interest form for you to register your interest on purchasing a demo for ESG 510. This is the first security gateway that we're going to launch. Once it's available, our appointed distributors and partners will be contacting you. So please stay tuned. Yep, that's about all. Thank you.
Sorry, I think there are follow-up questions right here. I'll be going maybe a couple more questions. Captive portal, do we have documentation? Yeah, we have an online manual. Apart from the white papers, we have an online manual. You can refer to that for more details about how EnGenius Cloud works. By the way, from the microsite as well, our EnGenius Cloud.ai microsite, we also have a demo link there. So in case you don't have any cloud device yet, excuse me, you can use the demo link to navigate through the portal. A question about the switch model. Does it support port channel? I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. Do you mind rephrasing it? Thank you. You're welcome, Jonathan. So yeah, I think that's all the time that we have for today. So again, thank you guys for attending, and do stay tuned for the launches that we will be doing in for this month and the next month. We have a lot to launch. We'll have a lot as well in terms of learning. So we'll introduce that real soon. So a lot of guys have been requesting for training. So we'll announce something very, very soon about that. So do stay tuned. So yeah, thank you everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone. Take care, guys.